This is the case that made me question humanity, a story so disturbing, it still lingers in my mind. In this documentary, we follow the disappearance of Rachel Hanley, a young woman whose quiet life in Willow Creek hid dangerous secrets. We uncover the chilling discoveries of Colin Mercer, the seemingly helpful neighbor who may have been far more sinister, and the mysterious shadow figure who might still be out there. If you care about uncovering the truth and want to keep hearing cases like this, support this channel by subscribing and staying active. Your engagement helps bring more real and unsettling stories to light, stories the world should never forget. Willow Creek was the kind of place people described as safe without thinking twice. A small cluster of streets lined with maple trees, where neighbors knew each other by name and children played until the streetlights came on. Life moved slowly there, almost untouched by the chaos of the outside world. That illusion shattered one warm September evening. It was just after sunset when Rachel Hanley set out for her usual job. She was 28, fit, and disciplined about her routine. She wore bright blue running gear that made her easy to spot, her phone tucked into an armband, music in her ears. Several neighbors saw her pass by, smiling and waving as she headed toward Pinehurst Street, a stretch she ran often. Nothing seemed unusual. 40 minutes later, the playlist was still playing, but Rachel was gone. Her phone was found in the grass at the edge of a vacant lot. The screen cracked, the earphones tangled. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints, no discarded belongings beyond the phone. Street cameras in the area showed her jogging past one intersection, but she never appeared on the next camera down the road. The space between those 2 points became the focus of an intense search. Volunteers, police officers, and search dogs scoured the wooded trails, creeks, and abandoned properties nearby. The news spread quickly, and the town that prided itself on trust and openness turned into a place of locked doors and nervous glances. Parents kept their children indoors. Every stranger became a source of suspicion. Days passed without answers, and the case began to feel like it had slipped into the same dark void as other unsolved disappearances. For the first time in decades, Willow Creek felt unsafe, and no one knew if the danger was still lurking close. As investigators dug deeper into Rachel's background, they expected to find the usual: a steady job, a few close friends, and a normal life. Instead, they uncovered a hidden side of her existence that no one in Willow Creek seemed to know about. Alongside her work as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm, Rachel had been running an anonymous blog for nearly 2 years. It wasn't about hobbies, recipes, or fitness tips. It was dedicated to exposing corruption within the town and surrounding areas. She posted detailed articles about financial fraud, shady land deals, and misconduct among public officials. Each post was backed by records, leaked emails, and insider information. The revelations on the blog were bold and dangerous. She named people with influence, those who controlled proper money and public perception. In several cases, her posts coincided with investigations being quietly launched against the individuals mentioned. That meant she had real sources, people feeding her confidential information, but it also meant she had enemies who had a lot to lose if she kept writing. Detectives began to look at her disappearance through an entirely new lens. Among the names she had written about were a real estate developer accused of bribing inspectors to approve unsafe buildings, a police officer allegedly tied to illegal gambling operations, and a wealthy socialite rumored to have manipulated local elections. All three had reason to want her silenced, and all three had the means to make it happen. Her blog went dormant the night she vanished, with no warning or farewell post. To the police, this felt like more than coincidence. What had started as a missing person case was now shaping into something far more dangerous, an act that might have been planned by someone with both power and a reason to keep her quiet forever. 3 weeks after Rachel's disappearance, the case seemed to be losing momentum. Leads had dried up, and the initial surge of volunteers had faded as life in Willow Creek slowly returned to its uneasy routine. Then, early one misty morning, a local fisherman named Howard Price stumbled upon something strange along the riverbank, about 8 miles from where Rachel was last seen. A piece of bright blue fabric was snagged on a low branch, fluttering gently in the breeze. Howard recognized it immediately from news reports. It matched the color of Rachel's running outfit. When police arrived, they expanded the search area and soon uncovered more. Beneath a layer of loose soil near the water's edge, they found a rusted metal box. It was heavy, sealed with tape, and buried shallow enough that recent rain had washed part of it into view. Inside were Rachel's running shoes, caked in dried mud, and a small spiral-bound notebook. The shoes appeared worn from recent use, but the way they were carefully placed inside the box felt deliberate, almost ritualistic. The notebook was even more disturbing. Some pages contained lists of dates and times, with cryptic initials written beside them. Other pages were filled with strange symbols that appeared to follow a pattern, almost like a code. Forensic analysis revealed that several of the entries were not in Rachel's handwriting. The strokes were heavier, sharper, as if made by someone else entirely. This new evidence raised unsettling questions. Had someone been following Rachel? Were they tracking her daily movements? And why hide her belongings in such a remote spot? The location's isolation suggested the person who left them there knew the area well, and the presence of the coded notebook hinted that Rachel's disappearance was part of something far larger than anyone had imagined. When investigators finally cracked the code in the notebook, the results were more disturbing than they had anticipated. Each symbol corresponded to a specific location in and around Willow Creek. At first, the police thought they were simply places Rachel had visited: parks, cafes, and jogging routes. But as they cross-referenced the coordinates, a chilling pattern emerged. Many of the marked locations were tied to unresolved missing persons cases from the past 5 years. Each one represented a spot where a different woman had last been seen before vanishing without a trace. The implications were horrifying. Rachel's disappearance might not have been an isolated act of violence. Instead, it seemed she had stumbled upon a connection between these cases and was documenting her findings in the coded notebook. That could explain why she became a target. Someone realized she was getting too close to the truth. The investigation took another dramatic turn when detectives reviewed security footage from a gas station along the highway, recorded just 2 days before Rachel went missing. Her car was parked beside a black pickup truck for nearly 15 minutes. The driver never stepped fully into the camera's view, but his build, posture, and movements were later identified as belonging to Colin Mercer, a 43-year-old handyman who had volunteered in the community search for Rachel. The discovery shocked the town. Mercer had been at every search meeting, offering his tools, his time, and his encouragement. Neighbors described him as helpful and approachable, someone they would never suspect. But his presence in the footage placed him with Rachel in the final days before she vanished. Investigators now had to consider the disturbing possibility that the person helping to look for Rachel had been with her just before she disappeared and perhaps knew exactly where she had gone. The arrest of Colin Mercer sent shockwaves through Willow Creek. For weeks, he had been the face of concern, speaking to reporters, organizing search efforts, and consoling Rachel's friends. But when police searched his property, the image of a helpful neighbor quickly unraveled. In his garage, forensic teams found traces of Rachel's DNA on a set of rope fibers and on the lining of an old tarp. Even more disturbing was a concealed storage room behind a false wall. Inside were boxes containing personal items belonging to at least 4 other women who had vanished over the past decade: jewelry, ID cards, clothing, even faded photographs. Faced with mounting evidence, Mercer admitted to taking Rachel to the river, but claimed he had left her alive. He insisted that someone else had taken her from there, and that he was only keeping track of her for reasons he refused to explain. Detectives dismissed it as a desperate lie until forensic analysis of the rusted metal box revealed something strange. The fingerprints on it did not match Mercer's. In fact, they belonged to an unidentified individual not yet in any criminal database. This revelation cracked open a possibility: no one wanted to face Mercer might not have acted alone. The idea that a second person, perhaps the true mastermind, was still at large made the case feel even darker. If Mercer's claim was true, Rachel's fate was still uncertain, and the real danger had not been removed from the community. Despite exhaustive searches, Rachel was never found. The case officially remained open, her image still printed on missing posters that weathered in the wind. For the residents of Willow Creek, the mystery left a permanent scar. Trust had been broken, and the question of what really happened to Rachel still haunted them all.